Hello and welcome to Perez Prosthetics Continuing Education Webinar for Physical and Occupational Therapists in Ohio and Michigan. We are thrilled to have you here and appreciate your commitment to furthering your skills and working with the amputee population. Now, before we get started, let's go over the steps to receive your CEU certificate. First, please make sure to watch this video in its entirety. Once you've completed it, click the link in the description below to access the online quiz. After taking the quiz, send an email to the address provided in the description to let us know that you've completed the course. We'll then send you your certificate of completion along with a quick survey for feedback. If you have any questions about the material or the process described in any specific webinar, never hesitate to reach out to us at the same email address, or you can visit us at perryprosthetics.com. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to share this valuable information with you.
To my right, which I might be to your left when you're watching this, is Mike Schroeder. He is our upper extremity specialist.
Hi.
He is going to be your lead presenter today. Alongside of us, coming to you live from 5 feet behind us, is Mike Perez. He's our clinical manager and prosthetist. And so it's really cool to have kind of that overarching, wheel spoke around a patient, right? Where you have the upper extremity specialist, you have the prosthetist, physician, case manager, occupational therapist, obviously. So that's kind of a lot what we're going to talk about today in terms of providing that patient with the best outcome possible. We, as a company, are celebrating our 25th anniversary, and we have offices in Perrysburg, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Findlay as well. And what you're experiencing today is part of our CARE program. So providing education to the medical professionals who treat our patients, and we sincerely appreciate your devotion to learning more. So we're going to be scooting right along. You already know the objective because you received it and when you logged in. And today, like any other presentation, ask questions throughout. Otherwise, Mike Perez, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what goes into an initial evaluation for those brand new upper extremity patients.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren. So typically our initial evaluation is going to occur as early as possible, and that could be from the time that surgeon reaches out to us and we know that that patient's going to become an amputee. So it might look in the form of a pre-amputation consult as our first contact with the patient, or it may be occurring in our office, whether that's in our Perrysburg location, Ann Arbor location, or Lima. We've also have come directly to the therapist location at times to provide an evaluation of that patient and get them started as an introduction to us and Perez Prosthetics. But there's a lot of things that we're going to be looking at this time to really ultimately the end goal here, as you see on the slides, and be forming that treatment plan. And we really have to get a great overview of that patient and understand who this amputee is, who the patient is, and know what their goals are, whether that's at work or at home, what activities were they doing prior to amputation, what are the things that they're now limited in as an amputee. And we're looking at their overall sense in terms of contralateral side, range of motion of the current amputated side. It may even involve some myocyte testing if we feel that myoelectric prosthesis isn't a good option for them. And as Mike will kind of dive into within this presentation, we may be considering both options for them in the long run based off of their activities and the environment they're going to be working in, and what might be the best option for that patient, whether it's because it's more robust or it's because it's going to actually functionally operate in an improved way to allow them to achieve different tasks. But we're going to be looking at their limb from a sense if they have any kind of swelling, if they need to have something that we call a shrinker sock to help manage that swelling, if they're early on in the process still and they're still healing from amputation, and really making sure that we're doing everything that we can to prep that limb to make sure that it's ready by the time that it's healed to fit them with the prosthesis. So ultimately, all this information is compiled. We do our documentation and get the process started from the insurance standpoint, which involves communication sometimes with the therapist yourselves for therapy notes if they've already seen the therapist. This evaluation may trigger the need for that patient to go see therapy prior to us working with them and actually physically starting the fitting process for that prosthesis. But ultimately, we're gathering all that information to make sure that we can start the process and make sure that once they're healed, the insurance and anything that needs to happen behind the scenes is kind of in motion at that time, and that doesn't become a delay for their care. So that's another reason why we do this as early as possible. Anything to add, Mike?
I think you hit most of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now talk to us about how do we determine between a body-powered prosthesis or a myoelectric?
So that's really going to come into play is going to be the environment that they're working in and what those functional needs look like. Are they doing fine motor skills? Are they doing more robust tasks like working on an engine or something that's mechanical? What level of dexterity do they have to have, or precision do they have to have with different grasp patterns? Again, is that environment going to be an environment that could damage their prosthesis? Is it wet? Is this prosthesis allowed to get wet? What does their overall condition look like? We have to consider making sure that we're not abusing the rest of their body as they're trying to do these tasks. So we have to make sure that this prosthesis can be the best tool for them to complete those things without compensating and doing all the things that they need to avoid that you guys work so hard in therapy to prevent them from doing. One thing that you'll see on the slide as well is cosmetic concerns. They look very different. We typically always approach it first from a functional standpoint, but we recognize that the amputee or the patient may be concerned about the appearance of the prosthesis. So we take that into consideration as to what prosthesis, again, body powered or myoelectric, is the best option for them. But really, we start by looking at those goals or those tasks that need to be accomplished and what prosthesis is going to be the most functional for them.
One of the other things that we look at too is the payer source for this, because if somebody has Medicaid is not going to pay for anything that's myoelectric. Okay, so that'll determine that. Well, so a lot of times we'll look at that ahead of time before we see the patient, as long as we can get some kind of a face sheet or something, and we'll look at that first before we go showing somebody, a myoelectric device, knowing that they're not going to be able to get that. The other thing is we consider a body-powered device something that's heavy duty, that you do heavy duty work with, versus a myoelectric would be light to medium duty.
And inquiring minds want to know, can a patient only receive a body-powered or a myoelectric? Are they essentially stuck with one?
No, we actually would like them to get both. And typically what we would do is get the patient the myoelectric first, because that's what they're going to use for ADLs. And with history, knowing the history of insurance, if you put a body powered on somebody, the insurance is most likely going to say no to the myoelectric device. But if you put a myoelectric device on them and then put a body powered on them, you can say the body powered is there to help protect the myoelectric, so they're not doing things like changing a tire with a myoelectric. We wouldn't want to see somebody do that. We'd want to see them using a body powered device. So we would like to try to get people both.
Beautiful. All right, Michael, anything else on this slide?
Nope, I think you nailed it.
All right, Mike, we're going to start talking about harnesses.
Okay, so I have a body powered device on to figure out how to do this here. Okay, so this is just something that we made for therapists to try out. So you can see that it has a cable that runs the device. Okay, so I'm moving my shoulder to open and close this device. I'm doing biscapular abductions, what I'm doing. Okay, so typically with a body-powered device, they're going to have a figure-of-8 harness, and that figure-of-8 harness is going to have a triceps cuff right here. It's going to have a strap that runs right down here past the axilla. 2 straps run to the triceps cuff and then to the socket, and that's the patient's suspension, and that's how they would keep this device on if they have a figure-of-8 harness, whether it's a transradial or transhumeral device.
And this is our friend Jeremy.
So if I saw that correctly, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but he has 2 forms of suspension with this device, one being the harness, and then he also had a liner with the pin, correct?
Yes. Yep. And we'll go over the liner and pin on the figure of 9, but you can put dual suspension on a patient, depending on what they do. Jeremy is obviously, once you see these videos, you'll see what he does, and he does about everything. So he needs plenty of suspension. So he's showing you how to don and doff this thing.
All right. All right, figure 9.
Okay, so same type of cable. You know, that's how this device is that I have on right now. It's a figure of 9 without the triceps cuff. Okay, I'm still going to do the same thing. Biscapular abduction to open and close the hook. Okay, you can rotate the hook. Okay. The rubber bands that are on here determine how much pinch there is on that hook and also how much pressure is on the shoulder when you open it. So most people are going to run 3 to 4 rubber bands. Every rubber band is 1.5 pounds of pinch. Okay. And they do have flexion wrists too, so you can see. I don't know if I can.
Come a little this way. There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
Nice.
Okay.
Anything else there?
I don't think so.
Right. Terminal devices.
Okay, so they have plenty of different terminal devices, especially if you're somebody who goes to the gym. They have all kinds of terminal devices for that, for weightlifting. They have them for golf. They have them for swimming. Holding a chainsaw. I don't know if they consider that really what that device is for, but they have one that is very capable of doing that. So TRS is the website that would have that stuff for the patient to check out. And all they are is a quick disconnect. They either twist off or there's a push button on the wrist unit, and then they can pop off the terminal device and put the new one on and then hook the cable to it. Some of the terminal devices don't require the cable to be hooked to them. It just depends on what the patient's doing.
Okay. And Michael, the terminal device considerations are really heavily influenced by an OT's notes, correct? Of like what tasks do they have to do throughout the day, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because those are driven so much off of the goals and the activities that the prosthesis is trying to accomplish. The patient's current range of motion, and overall presentation and things that are being worked on in therapy can really help with that.
Perfect. Anything else on terminal devices?
No, I think that's it.
All right. All right. So we'll get to see Jeremy. It's not going to be too much different than what Mike just demonstrated, but this kind of just shows him opening and closing that hook.
So you see he's moving his arm back and forth is what he was doing. But if he was to grab something, he would use the other shoulder to close the hook, because obviously you can't move your arm. If you're trying to grab a hold of something, if you move your arm, you're going to move it out of the way of the thing you're trying to grab. Okay, but he's just demonstrating how the cable works.
Perfect. I really thought, Perez, that I was keying you right up to this slide, but I forgot that video was there. So let's everybody just pretend that I transitioned this beautifully. Dang it.
It's all good. I kind of wondered what you were trying to ask me there.
Trying to just make it nice and smooth. It didn't work.
Kind of as I was saying, we're going to be looking at, again, those goals and those specific activities that this patient's trying to accomplish from a therapist standpoint. That's obviously very important as well, in terms of what does their range of motion look like? What are the barriers or those hurdles that we have to work through to not only allow the prosthesis to be as functional and to give us the best outcome, but what does that individual's limb look like and functional abilities that are going to then operate the prosthesis or may have a direct input on the outcome with the tools that we have to work with while we're fitting them. A big one being the terminal device and its function and how it's going to accomplish those tasks. But the overall thought process on our end is the design of the prosthesis. Again, the suspension, the harnessing, the terminal device. What does this patient have to do to don the prosthesis or doff the prosthesis? Are they able to achieve that through their available range of motion? Do they need to work on that in therapy, possibly before they even get the prosthesis? So that's an example of pre-prosthetic training. Once they have the prosthesis, that kind of window kind of opens up to what the goals may be and what we're trying to accomplish with that patient, because they essentially have the prosthesis, the tool to then work with. But really, we're trying to make sure that this individual is as well prepared as possible, and we have that good foundation to work with moving forward as we're going to be fitting them with the prosthesis. So what kind of pain or tenderness do they have in their limb? Do they have a lot of swelling? Is their volume stable? What does their current strength look like? All those are variables and things that are going to play a role in what can be worked on in therapy to make sure that this prosthesis is going to do what we intend it to do and get the best outcome possible. What kind of challenges and things are they doing in activity specific things such as cooking, and what are they going to have to do to dress themselves and to eat? Those are really the things that we're looking at this time to make sure that we can accomplish those goals for that patient.
Perfect.
Anything to add, Mike?
Just if the therapist has not done anything with body powered or myoelectric device, we at Perry Prosthetics will come to the therapy appointments with the patient to help in any way, as many appointments as possible, or as many appointments as the therapist needs us to, just to kind of help guide a little bit for someone who hasn't seen any of this stuff.
I think unfortunately we see too often that an individual may get a prosthesis and may not be directed to therapy, and whether it's training with us directly as prosthetists, or if it's making sure that we're helping collaborate as a team and get them into therapy, they may not be getting to those goals that we talk about early on and that we work towards. It's really important that we get them engaged in therapy and that we work together as a team to get there. I think, unfortunately, in the world of upper extremity, for whatever reason, we see all too often that patient may come back or come to us as an existing amputee and not understand the device or know how to use it to really get what's available to them based off of the operation or the functions that prosthesis should be able to achieve for them. And that's why therapy is so important.
Absolutely. And folks, no matter what setting you are in, don't think that you'll never see them, because we've recently done presentations from the acute rehab side of the hospital to skilled nursing homes to even a mom and pop owned outpatient clinic. It just depends on where the patient chooses to go to therapy, where their insurance lines up. So never hesitate to reach out to us if you do have that patient come on case, and then we'll be more than happy to come over and help you out. All right, this wraps up our body-powered portion, where you get to see Jeremy kind of showing off some of his skills. So he is from Sherwood, Ohio. Ironically, the three of us knew him from a previous company, and so we've known him a very long time. I have more photos of Jeremy on my phone than my kids, and he is a very skilled prosthetic user, works on a farm. You're going to see him welding here in a second. With your certificates, I will make a note. I will send you his patient success story, since I know that the videos probably have a little bit of a lag. You'll actually get to hear an interview with him talking about his story. He is a wonderful individual, very skilled, and kind of just the guy when it comes to being a body-powered user, kind of a patient model. But when we dive into the Myoelectric side of things, if we have enough time, you'll see a video of him utilizing the Zeus hand as well.
Yeah, so Jeremy does have both devices. He has Myoelectric and body power, because as you can see what he does, he needs both of them.
All right. So diving into Myoelectrics.
Okay, so Myoelectrics, here's where we're just working in therapy, trying to get the Myoelectric sites for this patient. This patient has had TMR, which is targeted muscle reinnervation. So she has multiple electrode sites that we're going to use for the shoulder disc artic that she's getting provided to her now. Right now, she's going to have her device that's going to have 4 electrodes. That's two of them would be one's for open, 2 are for open and close, and 2 are for flexion and extension of the elbow. And again, this is here where we help with trying to find these sites and getting the program to the therapist, so that way they can help do pre-prosthetic training, because that's actually what's going on here with this patient, is pre-prosthetic training.
All right. All right, so now we're going to dive into devices, and this is really more just so you guys know what's out there. Never feel like you have to be experts in knowing what each one of these hands are, but it's helpful to know kind of what is in our toolbox, and we can chat a little bit more about how we make the determination of what hand would be most appropriate for each patient.
Yeah, so with Theron saying that, you know, if a patient comes in and you're not sure what's best for them, that's really what we do. You know, and there's no bill for us to do a consult or an eval with a patient. We don't need any kind of prescription to do any of that, because there's no billing for that. Okay. All right, so for this one, this hand is made by Oser, and it's the example that I have here is the Quantum. Okay, so I just have it connected to a torch that has touchpads. So this little circle right here is a touchpad. So when you push on one or the other, it opens and closes it. So normally they would run off of electrodes that are built into the socket. So this hand has 15 pounds of pinch. You can move the thumb over to get your lateral pinch. Okay, this hand, being the Quantum, actually has a powered rotational thumb with gesture control. So what the patient will do is send an open signal, and they're going to hold the signal. And once they hold it, this finger will twitch, and the patient would then move the hand forward, backwards, or side to side. And each one of those movements is a grasp pattern that's picked with a program. Okay, which is typically what we let the therapists do, because they're the ones that are going to be working with them when we get to that point. Okay, so this is what they would do. Hold open, move forward. So now this is what they have. So I'll do that again. Do it that way. So now they have 3 jaw. So there's 4 different patterns that you can pick. And then you just move it one direction to get a switch there. Move the thumb over, back to that one. So there's only 2 there, but you can have 4. And then this one also has a flexion wrist. So you can push the button. And now, let's say they were riding a bike and turn the handlebars, you're going to want to bend your wrist. So this one is spring loaded. You can lock it into flexion like that, or extension like that. So all of the hands do rotate. There is such a thing as a powered wrist rotator. We do not have that in this, but all the hands can rotate like this, back and forth. And they're all quick disconnects. So you can take the hand off and put a different device on if you have that. And then just put it back on. It's on. Okay.
Beautiful. All right. I'm going to show a little video here of a couple different prosthetic users utilizing the device. And this is where you see a decent amount of ADLs being demonstrated, because again, from our perspective, guys, it's not just about putting the latest and greatest on people for any particular reason. We really utilize your feedback and your notes to determine what ADLs they need to accomplish. So just like Jeremy, you know, he's got body power devices and hooks to utilize for some tasks. And then obviously for the Myoelectrics are going to be much more appropriate for other tasks as well.
So with the multi-articulating hands, all 5 fingers have power to them. And they also have stall capabilities. So if something gets in the way of one, it might stop the finger, but the rest will keep moving.
All right. Forgot any cons on this particular one.
Okay, so the cons for any Myoelectric hand at this point is they're not for heavy duty use, and you know, they're really not aesthetically pleasing. This one does require a glove. Not all of them do. Some of the other ones that we're going to show today do not require a glove, but this one does. But the glove does help because the glove has really good grip to it. So it helps grab a hold of things, and you don't need as much power when you have a surface that has a lot of grip. Okay.
All right, B-Bionic.
So B-Bionic hand. So same thing. Okay. The difference between this one and the other one is the thumb has to be moved manually, and it's either in one position or the other, opposed or not opposed. So you can't get in between like you can on the other one. And this one, you have to manually move it. But the fingers move, all fingers move, just like the other one. It has 15 pounds of grip. They pretty much all say 15 pounds of grip. Unless you get to a hook, then a hook's going to be at 26. Again, this one is not for heavy duty use. We consider pretty much all Myoelectric devices for medium to light duty.
What about sizing? What would you say about sizing when it comes to fitting a younger female versus somebody with a big old bear claw?
So probably half of the companies that have multi-articulating hands, they have different sizes. So some go extra small all the way up to large. 3 of the companies I know out there only have 2 different sizes. They do have them for children and women that have smaller hands. Actually, they have them for really small children too, but it wouldn't be considered a multi-articulating hand then.
Okay. Michael, anything to add on the B-Bionic or even the iLimb from the previous slide?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Looks at all the points.
All right. Let's take a look at some tasks here with the B-Bionic.
So as you can see, they're using that and holding a fork with that. There's multiple ways to hold that fork depending on the type of fork that they have. So you just kind of have to play around with that to figure out what's the best grip for that. As you can see, that's a small B-Bionic hand right there. And the 2 that I have showed you those 2 are not waterproof. They cannot be wet. I mean, if you're out walking you leave the mall and you're walking to your car and it's raining, that's not going to do anything to it. But obviously you wouldn't want to submerge it in water.
So we're not washing dishes with them.
Probably not with those, no.
Yeah.
But you can with the hook.
Okay. All right. Tasca.
So here's the Tasca hand, which I do not have a example for that to show, but this hand is waterproof. Same power. It's going to have 15 to 16 pounds of grip. This one does have the powered rotational thumb. It's actually very fast. This one has 4 grips that you can choose, that the user can choose either by co-contracting or doing the open signal or pushing the buttons on the back side of the hand gets them to the grip patterns that they want. The wrist unit on this one is they do have flexion built into this one, and I'm pretty sure that you can't buy this hand without the flexion unit, whereas the other ones you can. But when you put flexion on the other hands, it adds about, I'm gonna say, an inch length to the hand. Okay, so again, this is a Myoelectric hand, so it's not really for heavy duty use, and aesthetics are just not really there. But a lot of people like them. When you put a carbon socket on it, they think it looks cool and what would you say, Terminator look.
Well, and that's actually a good point to bring up, is that once the patient has kind of gotten used to this idea, the aesthetic side of it is still very fresh in their mind. Could either of you talk, now that we're on that topic, could either of you talk about the consultation process about, do you default to going into rooms with these devices with patients, or is that something you ease into based on the patient's personality?
Yeah, that kind of depends on what you walk into. I mean, if we're going in for a consult, we typically don't take these things out unless it's appropriate. I mean, if somebody's sitting there in tears, and especially when it comes to ladies, they're they're pretty picky about that stuff, as they should be. You don't want to pull out one of these powered hooks and say, here, this is what you're going to get. So that all depends on what we walk into when we're doing the consult, or if they're coming here, because sometimes we do consults in the hospital or at therapy. A lot of times the therapists clue us in on how the patient's doing before we go see them. So good question to ask, Aaron.
Yeah, at the beginning, we're really just there to educate, try to give them some peace of mind, and to help them come to terms with maybe what they're experiencing at this time, and really start the education process about how we can play a role in this process to help them get to where they want to be. Help provide them with some hope, if that's how you want to put it, in terms of, they're going to be able to get back to doing what they want to do, and how we position ourselves as a team to help that become a reality. And then through the education process and understanding and learning about the patient, from there we might dive deeper into, this is what we're thinking and might be best for you and why. And obviously we have that conversation about the appearance of the prosthesis, if appropriate or necessary, and make sure that that's not going to become a barrier for us or a factor that's going to prevent them from wanting that style of prosthesis once we determine that that might be the best thing for them. And then if that is something that's important to them, there's always options that we can discuss then, maybe as a secondary device. Because again, as Mike's saying throughout the presentation, is they're not going to potentially just get one prosthesis. This is a tool for them. So based on if they're working on their car, if they're trying to do ADLs or different activities that they have to at their work, or if they're going to be going out to eat, or they're in a casual social setting, there might be some cosmetic options for them. Unfortunately, a lot of times when it comes to the cosmesis of the prosthesis, we have to really try to make the insurance understand that it's not specifically about, we're not providing this to the patient just because of how it looks. It still has function to it. And how, unfortunately, we do have to take that into consideration for the patient as well. So not the function, but just kind of their mindset and their thought process of, the cosmetics of the prosthesis.
And then, go ahead.
Good points, Mike.
And then how do you utilize peer mentors, patients who have, been here for a long time? I'm very proud to say I've met some of the best patient mentors here. So how do you arrange that, Mike, from one patient to another?
Mike Perez or Mike Schroeder?
We'll talk to you. You're already there. You're talking.
That is definitely a benefit that we have to us, and a lot of patients are wanting and willing to give back. So depending on where that patient's at, and if they're open to having a conversation with one of our patients and a peer mentor, that's definitely something that we can provide to them. But also we have our monthly Empower hours. That would be another great opportunity for that individual to not just meet maybe an upper extremity amputee, but a lower extremity. We have amputees from all over the area here in Northwest Ohio that get together to engage in different social activities, get them up moving. We always like to position ourselves around a team of therapists at as many of those events as possible. But really at those events, it's as much about the social aspect as it is about physically getting them up and moving and doing different therapy like tasks or goals and kind of putting hands on the patient. So that's another opportunity that we provide to our patients, or all amputees really in Northwest Ohio, not just our patients.
Perfect. All right. So get back onto the Tasca. We'll show couple ADLs here. And then I think in here there is a video of it getting a little bit more wet. If not, I've got a photo to show.
So I know they showed this video. I'm not a fan of doing that. I would tell them to use a body power to pull start that lawnmower. Not saying you can't, but if you keep doing that, you will break that.
And then talk to me about that submersion. So we saw two things: one where water is absolutely soaking that thing, and another one they're spraying it with a garden hose. So no issues with that particular device.
No, you just cannot get it inside the prosthesis, so you couldn't go up above the wrist because that's where the batteries are located inside of these devices. But that hand is waterproof as long along with the hook that I had, which is right here. So this is a powered hook, 26 pounds a pinch with this, and this is waterproof just as that hand is. It also comes with a flexion wrist that is a push button, so you just bump it. So this one's not spring loaded like the hand that we showed earlier, and it also has extension too. Okay. And they did that, they made that a bump switch like that so the patient don't have to reach across. They can just bump something with that and it would let it go down. Okay.
Perfect. All right. If you are following along with your handout, you will see that this isn't on there because Mike and I were talking about it this morning. And this is a hand that is utilized very frequently in our office, but we simply didn't have a slide on it. But we are absolutely happy to include this, and I'll make sure that you get the link to Jeremy's video here in just a second. But I'll let Mike talk about the Zeus.
So the Zeus has been out for probably 3 years. This is another one that does not have the power rotational thumb, but you just bump it on your leg to move it over is what you would do. You can use your other hand to do that. Same, they're all pretty much the same. I know it says grip force 77 pounds. I think that they all pretty much have 15 to 18 pounds of pinch, but when you carry something with it, as long as it goes across right here, okay, where the MCPs would be, then you could carry up to 40 pounds. I mean, the hand would take more than that, but the problem is the wrist that's right here that rotates, that wrist is only good for 40 pounds. So they can say this will take 100 pounds, but the wrist will end up popping out of there is what's going to happen. Okay. Sometimes it can break if it does that, but usually it does not. This hand has 12 grip patterns. The first one that we showed you, I think, has 36 and customizable. So this one you can actually customize them too. Not sure why this hand's not working.
It's beeping like my fridge door when I leave it open. What did you do?
I don't know. Okay, well, we're not going to demonstrate that one today. I'll have to hook it up to computer and see what it's doing.
Which is actually something to talk about. How do you program?
Yeah, so you have to connect to a computer or an iPad and program it to the patient's EMG signal. So everything is set per patient. It's not just something that you stick on and expect it to work. It's the patient has to be trained and the signals have to be set to the gains and thresholds would have to be set in the program, which is what we do. Therapists, once they get some experience with that, they can go in there and move that stuff too. The patients can get the program so that they can pick the grasp patterns and change them, but typically they cannot get the program that we would get because we don't want them to change the gains and thresholds.
All right. Fair warning. I did not crop this video yet. So I'm pretty sure it's 100% like seamless and no issues whatsoever, but I did add it kind of briskly this morning. So you'll just be able to get to see Jeremy do a couple tasks there in the kitchen.
So Jeremy's doing a co-contract to switch those or an open. So all of these devices do have proportional control. So you can see that he picked that egg up without breaking that. You can do that. You can actually pick up a potato chip once you've used it and have been trained with it. They don't have to be full force, 15 pounds of grip whenever you're using it.
All right. Grand finale. Let's chat a little bit about elbows.
Okay, so here's the elbows. They're body powered elbows and myoelectric elbows. This patient here has a dual site electrode system, so she's firing tricep bicep for open and close. And for the elbow, that's a hybrid elbow, so she's just swinging her arm, and it has a lift assist on the elbow to help lift it, and then she'll move her shoulder back like this to lock it. We also do have a myoelectric one that we'll show here in just a second when she's done. She's actually a nurse in the Fort Wayne area.
There is a video on our YouTube channel of her putting in an IV with her prosthesis, which is incredible.
Yeah, so and the reason that she can do that with she's been doing this for a long time, and her hand is not a multi-articulating hand. So that hand has 26 pounds of pinch, but it only has 3 jaw chuck. This is all it will do. It doesn't have the multi-articulating fingers where they're all moving. So it has more pinch to it, but that's the only grip that it can have.
All right. So now is your opportunity to ask us some questions. Again, you can use the chat feature, or you can type something into the Q&A section, and we can kind of chat through those. And I promise you, we are going to wrap up before 1 o'clock. That way you can get back to your patients. While you guys are taking the time to type in your questions, I do want to elaborate on what Michael was talking about with our Amputee and Power Hour. Some of you may have known it as the walk-in clinic. It was rebranded actually by somebody who's in this as a attendee, helped us come up with this name because we are extending this now to upper extremity patients, and we've had some partial hand patients and upper extremity patients join us. It's going to make rounds through all of the hospital systems throughout the rest of the year. So in the spring, in March and April, it's going to be held at the Rehabilitation Hospital of Northwest Ohio on UTMC's campus. In the summer, it's going to be at Mercy's YMCA outpatient clinic right across the street from us in Perrysburg. And then in the fall, ProMedica Bay Park Hospital will be hosting it. Think about it as a community event for amputees, but with a really big focus on mobility and getting patients up and moving and getting them wherever they come from in terms of, I want to be here and I am here, let's get you there. We have always need medical professionals to come and volunteer. If you have patients who are interested in coming to this event, you'll get a flyer with your certificates. You can always direct them towards me. A special presentation that we're going to be doing in May is going to be presented by our founder, Chris Perry, on AmpuFitness, which is going to be focused dually on specialized exercises for upper and lower extremity amputees, wherever you are in your journey. What goals do you have? And then talking a lot about nutrition and talking about food journaling and talking about making small daily changes to your habits for overall health. I don't know what it is about this presentation, but I can tell you guys that I have 10 times as many amputee patients already pre-registered for this than we normally see at our normal events. Our normal events, we never worry about any kind of registration for that. For this one, just because of seating and food and things like that, I had to make sure I put that in there, and it's drawing a crowd. So if you have a patient who might be interested in that, please let them know, and then pass them on to me. And then whether you are a PT or whether you are an OT, this is the biggest news in the past 10 years of our company's history. We are very proud to host the Amputee Symposium for the very first time in Perrysburg on October 2nd and 3rd. If you received an email for this webinar, most likely you also received a save the date in your email within the past week. If you are a physical therapist, there are 14 CEUs that are going to be available to you. We have the single most renowned presenter on amputee rehabilitation, Dr. Robert Gailey. He is the guru in the entire world for lower extremity amputee rehabilitation. He is a physical therapist, and he's going to be our keynote speaker. he is also retiring. And so this is his last rodeo and last time that he's going to be in this part of the country. Occupational therapist, you are not excluded. You're going to have your own specialized presentation on upper extremity prosthetics and partial hand devices. So you'll have the opportunity to attend one of 4 presentations over 2 days, which provides you 3 CEUs. We're going to have endless number of exhibitors. Patients can come in for patient assessments. It is going to be one of the biggest events I've personally ever been a part of, and you will receive more information about that coming up soon. So all right, we have hit 1250. You are good to go. We really appreciate your devotion, not only to our education program, but to the outcomes of our patients, which is genuinely what is the #1 priority. So thank you again for everything that you guys have done for us and your patients, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.